Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, starring Robert Englund, Lisa Zane, Sean Greenblatt, Leslie Dean, and Yefe Kodo, and directed by Rachel Taylor, who I've directed her before, or I've seen her work before in Tank Girl. So let's get into this movie because this is kind of my, I don't know, somewhat first viewing, second viewing. In Springwood, Ohio, John Doe, yes, that's his name, played by Sean Greenblatt, dreams about Freddy Krueger, returned by Robert Englund, acting like a comedian, like it was introduced, I thought in part 3, but I guess it was here. But here they make it more explicit in this opening sequence, like in the airplane, and Freddy saying the Wizard of Oz line, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too." And Freddy bumps into John on the bus, and there's no screaming on the bus, or whatever that line was. Like, Jesus, can this guy think of anything new? Then Freddy drops him off in the next town, where he goes to a hospital where we saw in part 3, I'm guessing, and tells John to fetch Freddy and some new meat. And this movie tries too hard on the jokes, and making this as good as parts 1 and 3. Well, to tell you the truth, guys, it's not. This script is very lazy. We meet the characters that don't matter whatsoever, like John Spencer, played by Breckenmeyer, who's a rich asshole. Carlos, played by Ricky Dean Logan, who has a hearing aid. And Tracy, played by Leslie Dean, who wants to be a fighter. And the only character besides Freddy that I sort of care for is Maggie Burroughs, played by Lisa Zane. Other than her and Freddy, and I'll get to why her a little later, but the other characters are just awful in this movie, as John arrives in Maggie's dreams of when she was a little girl, when she was playing with her father, and suddenly the mother screams, and next thing you know, John is dreaming of being inside the Krueger house. And the effects looked absolutely take just right off the fucking bat. And he wakes up after he knocks down a security guard. And another character named Doc, played by Yifet Koto, who played Parker in Alien from 1979, one of my earliest reviews. And he was in a James Bond movie film called Live and Let Die, which I reviewed last year, suggests to Maggie to take John back to Springwood. They arrive to Springwood as Spencer, Carlos, and Tracy take the van, while John and Maggie look around Springwood, and they get trapped by going in circles as Carlos dreams of the map extending as long as anyone can imagine, while John and Maggie connect the clues of Freddy 101, which is such a stupid line, by the way, folks. And the guy says it pretending to be a teacher, and Carlos, Spencer, and Tracy go in a house for sale to sleep overnight, as it is cursed, for example. Carlos goes to sleep and gets his hearing aid taken out by Freddy, and without hearing a fucking thing, Freddy throws Carlos into his boiler room, and as Freddy tries to call him, he can't hear a goddamn thing, and does somehow catch it with some ear-hugging looking creature, and it gets off as Freddy drops some pins to make extra noise and a chalkboard, and I hate that trick. Dream as it blows Carlos up. Meanwhile, Spencer falls asleep on the couch and gets beat up by pretty damn badly in a video game world that Freddy plays as he kills Spencer, which I could care less for these characters. But John and Maggie go to the house of a psychotic woman, and Tracy picks up John and Maggie, and this is all very stupid for a movie. It also sounds like a cartoon, but a bad cartoon for that matter. John and Tracy fall asleep at the same time, and they try to get Spencer in and out, but like I said, Freddy killed him like a fucking video game, and Tracy almost gets killed by Freddy, but John is still in a dream, as he gets killed by Freddy, cutting his parachute to tell the audience Maggie is the daughter of Freddy. And that's the reason I sort of connected with Maggie, as and John just dies and disappears as Freddy travels in Maggie's head. And I'm thinking she's going to kill herself with Tracy, but they make it back in time, and Maggie's boss tells Maggie to take a vacation, while Tracy tells Doc about Spencer and Carlos dying, and Doc wants to fight Freddy with Tracy, and Maggie is reluctant about it as she finds out Freddy is her biological father. But I knew that suspense was coming on my first viewing because I had it spoiled for me, which I am ashamed to admit it myself. If I weren't for that, it wouldn't felt shocking because it felt a little bit obvious to me. If I wasn't spoiling the movie myself, Tracy dreams of beating up Freddy, and Maggie goes to Tracy as she wakes herself up by bringing herself awake, and she gives to Doc to talk to him. She goes to Doc, and to him as he beats up on Freddy, as well as Freddy shows him the power and takes the place of Freddy's sweater, like in the first film. There's so many callbacks of the good ones I've seen at least three different times. Doc and Tracy put Maggie to sleep, get Freddy in the real world, like we saw in part 1, but with some 3D glasses jumping into Freddy's dream world, and eventually brings him out to the real world and kills him once and for all. And we cut to credits with some footage of the previous movies, and this is a stupid climax in my opinion. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 2.8 out of 10. Other than Freddy and Maggie, I don't like any of the other characters, including Doc, which is a shame because he was the best actor of the bunch. The story was very weak and it acts stupid at times, particularly Freddy as a comedian, which was introduced, I thought, in part 3, but I guess I'm wrong there. And a lot of the material is just a bunch of nonsense, as the movie is a total waste of time for not just people who aren't into horror or Freddy or the series, and the fans will be very disappointed like I was. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And until next time, come down.